Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to the stage Carol Lincoln, Senior Vice President of Achieving the Dream.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I know last night when Yasmin introduced us or welcomed us to sunny California, you might have doubted, but today is a sunny, beautiful day in California, and those of us from other parts of the country have got to feel good in warm, sunny California. Last night was an awesome beginning, as it always is. Whenever we start with students, it's always an awesome beginning to our work. And on this Dream conference this year, we started with students, and you'll find students throughout the program. We'll end with a student on Friday, so we're never going to forget why we're here and what the focus should be of our conversations. With that, I wanted to simply remind you that there's a notice in your program booklet about where the students have come from this year. And we have students from Kingsborough Community College in New York, from Lane College in Vermont, from Pierce College in California, and from Tarrant County Community College in Texas. Any one of those students could have stood up last night and told a story that would have torn at our heartstrings and made us think about all the other students that are in the classes back home. So we're really pleased and proud to have so many students here. I want to give a shout out to the team over here with the balloons. Is that Lane? Well, they are the smartest group I have ever seen. They knew what they were walking into, didn't they? I think it's cool. I think next year we all ought to bring our school flags or something so that we can find each other in this room. I have a number of announcements. So I would beg your indulgence for a few moments. We have been flashing on the screen this morning a number of program changes. There's some room switches and some other things that we want you to be aware of. So if you don't mind, please give me a chance to run down what some of these program changes are. First of all, there is a reception tonight. Now that's getting your attention, right? There's a reception tonight that is for any college that has already received a trade adjustment assistance TAC grant. We'd like to provide an opportunity for you to do some networking and talking, but if you're even interested in applying for a Department of Labor TAC grant, please come to that reception this evening. It's going to be at 5:45 on the lanai deck, 5th floor. Mindy Feldbaum, who is with the Collaboratory, will be there. She's worked with a lot of your colleges, and so will Rachel Singer from Achieving the Dream. There's also a reception for students tonight. The students, you'll have a reception 5:30 in room Carmel on the 4th floor. Founding partners of Achieving the Dream, you may have already received a note, but the room for breakfast tomorrow morning for us has been changed. It's been moved to the Coronado room, which is on the, well, actually, I take that back. We were going to be in the Coronado room. We're now going to be in the Huntington room tomorrow morning, bright and early. There's a location change for one of the spotlights this afternoon, one that's called the Compelling Case of Competency-Based Education. That's being moved to the Huntington room on the 4th floor. If you were planning to go to a workshop called A Fresh Look Completion by Design's Analytical Framework, The title has been changed to A Tale of Two Cohorts. And the workshop is going to be, let's see, where are we putting that workshop? We're putting that one in the same room. We're changing the title, and so you should not be confused by the title switch. It's right, exactly where it was said it was going to be in the program, but there is a different emphasis of that title, and I assume some of the content. There's a session called Infusing Reading Apprenticeship in First-Year Seminars. It's been moved to Wednesday at 9:30 this morning into the Ventura room. And then I have a special request for all of you from Tarrant County. You've been requested to please meet in front of the Welcome to Dream Arc, which was by the reception that we had last night. Your team is going to have its photo taken at 5:30 tonight, so be there looking good. These updates were rolling on the screen this morning, but I want to remind you that there's an app. If you haven't already downloaded the app on your devices, all of these updates are being added to that, so you'll have correct information if you use that app. Okay, I have a very special announcement. And let me just make one more program announcement first, though. There's a session today that is called Emerging Ideas Exchange. And many of you who applied to be presenters at DREAM this year were told that either we were already full, didn't have room for your workshops, or perhaps your idea was an emerging idea and you didn't yet have 4 semesters of data to provide evidence of its effectiveness. There is a tremendous collection of folks who are going to be presenting at the Emerging Issue Exchange. It's a place where you'll find things that people are trying and they believe are going to be successful, and it's an opportunity to hear what they think are some of their cutting-edge strategies. So please go to that, visit that. Okay, for the special announcement, I have a special thank you this morning. Last night, Bill Trueheart told you that for the first time at DREAM, we have certain corporate sponsors. Today, our sponsor is the SAS Institute. And what they've done is they've made a contribution to Achieving the Dream, which is supporting our engagement through media and technology. Their gift will help us improve our knowledge center, where we deposit all of the information that we have about the effective practices and policies that you're working on. Please look for them at their table in the registration area this morning. They'll also be at the Emerging Ideas Exchange, and you can have more conversation with our wonderful colleagues from SAS. One other program note. There's a Birds of Feather board. Those of you who've been here before will know what a Birds of a Feather session is. It's an opportunity to gather with people who are interested in some topics that you're interested in, whatever that topic may be. If you have a topic where you'd like to gather some peers, some colleagues to talk to about that topic, go to that board by registration, write down the topic you're interested in, and a room will be assigned, and hopefully people will come and they will be engaged with you in that topic. Okay, I think I've given you quite enough announcements. So, with that, I would like to give you an opportunity to meet another one of Achieving the Dream's wonderful board members. Last night, Bob Templin was one of our main presenters, and Bob is the chair of the Achieving the Dream board. You also met Bill Trueheart, who's a member of the board. This morning, I'd like to introduce the secretary of the Achieving the Dream board, Blenda Wilson. That name should be familiar to many of you, because Blenda has been up close and personal in higher ed all her career. She's been a board member of, listen to this, how many different higher ed institutions she's been a board member of. Antioch University, Cambridge College, Boston College, Clark University, Spelman College, and Cedar Crest College, which has to be most special of all because that was also her alma mater. She's also chair of the board of directors of HERS, H-E-R-S, a national leadership development organization for women in higher education. She's been the trustee, but she's also been the CEO. She was president of California State University, Northridge, and she earned praise in that position for her handling of the recovery from the devastating earthquake in 1994. She was chancellor of the University of Michigan in Dearborn. She's also been on the Colorado Commission of Higher Education, and she's been at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Blenda has 27 honorary degrees from colleges and universities in the United States. And we feel so, so privileged that she's been willing to give her time and her talent to help Achieving the Dream thrive. So I'd like to give Blenda the privilege of welcoming our keynote speaker this morning and ask you to please welcome Blenda to the stage.
Thank you very much, Carol, and good morning, Dreamers. Good morning. I didn't see the balloons. Where are they? Oh, just one back there. Oh, I see it. Thanks, Carol, for the very kind introduction. I'm so delighted to be here to feel the energy of the Dreamers and of Achieving the Dream. One of the connections I had with this organization was about 10 years ago, when I was the president of the Nellie Mae Education Foundation, and the original funders were looking for co-sponsors and co-funders. We were able to make a grant to an institution in New England, and now we see 1,600 versions of that little grant. It wasn't a lot of money. So I feel as though our judgment, at least, was really profound about 10 years ago. What's wonderful about this occasion, though, is I get to meet with an outstanding group of board members. Carol was right about that. The board comes from all walks of life, all parts of the country, all holding together the sense of mission and the sense of purpose that you bring to your students, your institutions, and to your communities. The only thing the board does, by the way, is we hope, ask good questions of the staff, support them, and let them know that the hard work they put into this is going to change our world. We would say that about you as well. So my job is supposed to be introducing our plenary speaker this morning, and I met him last night, and he told me that if you wanted to recognize him in a crowd, you'd look for the tall, debonair, handsome man. So when he gets up here, you'll have that opportunity. But if you had read his bio, what you would know is that as ATD talks about sponsors and supporters and funders and founders and all of those things, Vincent Tinto is all of those. He's a researcher, an author, a scholar, a presenter, a testifier in front of commissions. He's touched every aspect of higher education and higher ed associations. He advises governments, kings and queens, I put that in. And he does that out of just an incredible heart. Everything he's done is about advocacy for student success, for equity and excellence, and therefore he creates by himself an environment in our country that supports your work and supports you. So since he's handsome and debonair and very intelligent and very, very, very influential, please welcome Vincent with love, with great applause, with great excitement.
Oh, boy. Good morning, folks. Can you all hear me? By the way, when she's referring to kings and queens, she was referring to my wife. You know the saying, preaching to the choir? Well, I feel a bit intimidated because this is the high choir. And if anyone should be up here sharing the knowledge that matters, it should be all of you. And so if you bear with me, I hope my work simply summarizes and captures what you already know. And when we look at institutions across the country that have made substantial, lasting gains to college completion for the students we serve, especially for the low-income, underserved students, the first thing we know is that this success does not arise by chance. In fact, it requires of us in our institutions an intentional, structured, proactive set of actions that are systematic in nature and coordinated applications. It does not arise by good intentions alone. Yet we have good intentions for sure, but that's not sufficient. And in turn, it also requires, folks, tech people, we're having a technical problem. This is supposed to be a remote that goes 300 feet. There we go. It requires that we establish, when they think about improving success, they recognize, as you all do, there are many things that shape and constrain our students' ability to succeed. Personal lives, work, financial situations, you name it. And so they say, even though we seek to help all our students, there are limits to what we can do. And those things, external to the college, it's hard to deal with, though some institutions have sought to do so with some success. But they say to themselves, at least the one thing we can do at the beginning of our efforts is focus on those things on our campus that affect student success over which we already have control. And so you can ask yourself, what do we know about those conditions or environments on campus that already shape success? Because those conditions reflect the decisions we've already made in the past. And if we're serious about our work, we can change those conditions. And indeed, that's what colleges have done. And they start by saying to themselves, well, what do we know from the research and from the experience of practitioners like you? What do we know about those environments that best promote success? Well, what are they? First, students do best in environments that hold clear, consistent, accurate expectations for what is required to succeed. Least we forget, like myself, there's so many first-generation college students who have no history, no shared experience of going to college to know what it meant. My father had little education. All he knew that in America you go to college. Did I know what that meant? No. Does a lot of our students know what that means? No. Expectations matter. But so do high expectations. You know the saying, no one rises to low expectations. But too many of our students come from a legacy of expecting not to do well. Look at their experience in schools and communities. And a little surprised, they enter an institution having doubts about their capacity. But expectations matter. Listen to the voice of this student. By the way, these videos I'm showing you come from a remarkable study carried out by Kay McClenny and Arlene Zonsberger at Community College Survey of Student Engagement in Austin, Texas. It's captured in a wonderful book called Students Speak. You should all get that book. Free steak knives are coming with it. Is that right, Kay? And it has in the back of the book a wonderful CD with some of these video clips, and here are some of them. So you hear the voices of students as they talk about their experience.
I was kind of confused on everything. I was like, what about turning over here? And then I just ended up, I ain't gonna lie to you, I just ended up sitting in a room, and then she just started giving people papers. I'm like, where am I at? And they says, oh, you're in orientation. I said, oh, well, I accidentally fell in orientation.
Accidentally?
So I got that out the way on accident. And, but I'm glad I did it because I learned a lot of stuff that I did not know. And as soon as I walked out of orientation, I knew exactly what I needed to go do.
And those things should not arise by accident. That's the point of that video. And so many institutions are now doing online orientation to make sure students get that information regardless of where they start. But so too does advising matter.
I think that's so, so important because the schools I'm looking into now to transfer to, I have to see what classes I need to take to get to where I need to go. And I believe for me anyways, if I didn't sit down and take that time, what's the point? I'd be taking classes that would be irrelevant, I wouldn't use any of the credits. I mean, it's always good to learn, but when we have a goal, it's like, what progress am I making toward that goal?
Amen. And you know, so many students start undecided, and so many, even who they think they're decided, change their major several times. And that affects the rate at which they make progress. And you know that the longer it takes students to make credit progress, the less likely they are to finish. So advising matters, but scaling up advising is a challenge. That's why there's so much interesting work going on with predictive analytics, the work of Amazon, iTunes, and Netflix. So colleges like Saddleback College in Irvine, California, not far here from you, has developed their own predictive advising system called Sherpa, nice name, the Tibetan guides. So does Rio Salado have Rio Pace. It's an important movement to use technology to scale up advising so all students get at least some minimum of good advising. But in addition to knowing what to do, it matters to know that you do it well.
Just being really tough, and her classes were really tough. It was a lot of work. It was 5 credits. It's what you signed up for when you went into it. But having that base of knowledge that I have after making it through her class, it's just indispensable.
I always end up appreciating teachers that are hard on me. I mean, I hate it at the moment, but my favorite teachers are always the ass kickers.
I didn't say that, Kay. It was your... But the challenge, however, is you're not going to hear students say that to you because they will not otherwise. You hear the other voices. But high expectations matter. Again, no one rises to low expectations, or nonetheless, no expectations. So expectations matter. The second condition, folks, is support. And you know this. So many students begin our colleges in need of academic and social support, especially academic support. So there's a vast movement afoot to think about how we reorganize and transform how we support our work. You know well the Gates Foundation, Lumina Foundation has supported the Developmental Education Initiative, which is seeking to transform the nature of support. And you also know the work of John Gardner and the Foundations of Excellence program, seeking to provide support through the use of the freshman seminar.
I was told it was an easy grade.
Yeah, well.
And since I never been to college before, so I figured it could be helpful. So I took the class, study skills, writing, getting research. It's everything built into one class, basically. It's helpful. It is.
But what is more helpful, folks, is not just the presence of a course like Student Success course, which is very valuable. As you know, Florida's adopted it statewide. But that the support is contextualized to the learning needs of students in specific classrooms. Thus, the work of a Development Education Initiative and the work of the Community College Research Center, a teacher's college. The theme is how do we connect our work as support staff to the specific classes in which students are enrolled. Because the closer you can make that connection between the support provided and the learning needs of students in specific classrooms, the more likely to use that support to learn. And therefore, the trick is how to contextualize and apply those skills in the process of learning in the classroom. But at least we forget, folks, it's not about student retention. It's about student learning. Right? It's not about our teaching. It's about how we construct settings in which they will learn and in which we work. Contextualization. Perhaps the most common form of this, of course, is the well-known supplemental instruction program. How many of you here have supplemental instruction on your campus? Well, you all should, folks, or things like that. Here is the classic form of supplemental instruction. Now, there's many variants of this, but this is just the, quote, the classic example. Here you have an instructor who works up, down.
Student instructor.
Oh, excuse me. The instructor works with a series of tutors or learning center staff who know by working with the instructor what she will do class to class. They will know the assignments that are coming up. And the point of the supplemental study groups, A, B, C, D, is to allow students to work on the skills necessary for the assignments one class at a time. And the research shows that people who implement this correctly, it's always implementation that matters, of course, is that the grades in such classes go up on average because the bottom comes up. How many people have seen that happen in their campuses, right? Raise your hand, folks. You should look at that because the evidence is pretty clear. The bottom comes up. And in part, why?
Well, thankfully, AMP has an SI, student instructor, and what she does is it's a student who previously took the class, aced it, and knows this professor, this class, and you get together once a week, twice a week sometimes, and you go over the material that's been discussed in class, and anybody can come to it. And so I got to meet a lot of great people doing that, and we formed our own study group on top of that one, just to help us out a little bit more, but it has really saved me big time.
No, you notice what she said, not only did they get together, but they worked and formed groups. We'll come back to this. Students in groups do better than students on their own. And one of the benefits of supplemental instruction or other forms of group support is that students get support from the group themselves. And you can see what she said about it. So support matters, of course. So too does support through the use of learning communities. Here's an example of what might be called basic skills learning community. This comes from LaGuardia Community College in New York. Now, by the way, I speak 2 languages. I speak New Yorkese and English, and it's pronounced New York, all right? All right, Joy? Okay. Okay. Here you have students who are ESL students. They sit in developmental English and also sit together in the accounting class. Now, the point of a learning community is not just co-registration. It is that the faculty use the opportunity to construct a learning environment across the borders of the curriculum. So here, students are studying accounting and learning English at the same time in both settings. Listen to what this person says about her experience at LaGuardia. There it is. Oh, sorry. We're having a bit of trouble with this. The relationship between accounting and ESL is helping a lot because the accounting professor is teaching us to answer questions in complete sentences, to write better. And we are more motivated to learn vocabulary because it's accounting vocabulary, something we want to learn about anyway. Then she adds the important modifier here. I am learning accounting better by learning accounting language better. The connection between learning across the borders which support both. This is a form of contextualization. And we get variants of this. A number of colleges, and I know John Gardner would argue this, the use of student success courses in the same learning community format where the course provides that connected support, where all 3 faculty and staff work together. That's the way you provide connected support. So, expectations and support matter. But so does the development of assessment and feedback systems. That is, students do best in environments that frequently assess their performance and feed back that information, not only to the students, but the faculty and staff, to that feedback loop. Why? Because that information can trigger support. And therefore, we see the development of monitoring systems of student progress. And more importantly, the development of early warning systems. How many people on your campus have early warning systems for your students? Well, again, folks, every campus should have them. Now, let me make a note. As a result of many years of complex theoretical research using multivariate regression equation and loaded analysis, we found a very important characteristic of effective early warning systems. Okay? The secret of effective early warning is that it's early. See, this is why you get a PhD, to study the obvious. Oh, not me. I'm talking about my colleagues. No, it is very important to know that there is a lot of information about the dynamics of student failure and withdrawal. And students who come from a legacy of struggle in particular, but not only, if they get confused and in the beginning, they start getting more confused and discouraged. And the longer you wait to intercede, to provide support in a proactive fashion, the less likely they will be able to respond. In fact, if you wait to the midterm, which is often the characteristic response, it's already too late for many students. So early matters. Well, getting faculty to do that. Well, if you know how to do that, write a book and I'll buy that. No, of course it matters. So you ask yourself, if early warning matters, where should early warning be first implemented? The first year, and the key gateway classes of the first year. Because if students don't do well in those courses in the first year, they don't do well. So the question is, there's many things we can do, but the question you ask is, where does it matter most when? And here again, technology helps us. Again, we're using predictive analytics in developing early warning systems. The Signals project at Purdue University has been developed for that purpose. Other programs have developed them. Ria Salado, the Rio PACE program. Ways in which faculty would put their mini exams online, for example, at Purdue on the blackboard, and a background statistical engine will immediately analyze over time whether students are struggling, need difficulty, or need support. You get the red light, yellow light, green light. There are versions of this. Because that technology allows us to scale up early warning in ways that go beyond just 1 or 2 classes. It can be used for many classes. So early warning matters. But the point of early warning is not to send a student an email saying, Vinny, you're in trouble. I know that. I know that. It's to proactively reach out to students. It's proactive, intentional, structured action that matters. So faculty members should go to a student and say, yo, Vinny, this is New York, all right? Yo. Oh, man. See, if my daughter was back here one time, she came to one of these sessions like this, it was Washington, D.C., and she said to me, Dad, please don't embarrass me again. And I said to her, what's the point of being a parent if I can't embarrass my own children? There's no... You know this, Fausti, right? Yeah, amen. Okay, so there's that. But there's also in-class early warning. And you know, we have developed a range of devices like the automated clicker system to get immediate feedback so faculty can find right away whether students get the concept or information before you proceed. So too is this wonderful, seemingly deceptively simple notion of the 1-minute paper. Has anybody ever used this 1-minute paper, the work of Cross and Angelo? Well, folks, let me urge you, especially those faculty out here, every faculty who teaches in the first year in particular should have this wonderful book called Assessment Research Methods. Is that right? Research and Assessment. I'm sorry? Classroom Assessment Methods, right. And each book is a chapter using a wonderful technique. Thank you, Achilles. And the 1-minute paper is a wonderful thing. How many people actually use it in their classroom? All right. Well, let me just quickly tell you how I use it, and you can see why it works. Typically, I teach a class of about 55, 60. It's 15 weeks. I teach the class twice a week. And so it's 30 sessions in a semester. Typically, in 24 of them, I'll ask students to use a 1-minute paper. And I'll say to them, take out a piece of paper, no name, and I want you to answer at the end of class in 2 sentences, 2 questions. First question, was there something that you found interesting today about which you'd want some more information? Say something, please. All right? Like why you dress that way. But more importantly, it's called the muddiest point. That is to say, is there something you found particularly unclear or confusing about what you need clarification? Now, students don't put their name on the paper, right? And they hand the paper at the end of the class, and the object is to go to your office, sit down at your Apple computer. I have Apple stock, so I keep promoting it. Sorry, Bill, I just want to let you know. Thank you very much. And you scan a random sample, well, 30, 40%. And you can find out pretty quickly 2 or 3 things that students are interested in, and there's several things more important they're unclear about. And the point is immediately then, you sit down, in my case, I sit down on my computer, put it to Blackboard, I send it out in the listserv, I don't take a chance, they have to see it. But more importantly, the next class, I hand out a 1-page, 2-sided document, and I go over the muddiest points. I have one side as interesting points, the other side is the muddiest points. I read and talk about the muddiest points. 5 minutes it takes. That one technique done consistently, folks, improves the learning of content in virtually almost all classes in which it's used. Mathematics might be the exception, perhaps. Perhaps. Why? Because students get clarification before the next class goes on. And importantly, because you don't ask for their name, they're willing to tell you. And that means you have a trade-off. You don't know who is struggling, but you know in a representative, honest way what they don't know. And then you modify what you do to address their needs. Remember, it's not our teaching, it's their learning that drives our concern. And if you do this consistently, you know what happens during class, and they know it's coming? They start paying attention. No, seriously, folks, it's here. Many of them start thinking ahead of time, do I know it? Do I not know it? And that is called critical listening. And that improves learning. These techniques work, folks. The question is, how do we hear student voices, as Kay and Arlene have done in their project? How we use those methods to learn what they don't know. Because if you asked at the end of the class, who doesn't know some material, you think anyone raise a hand? No. Okay. So assessment and feedback matter. 3rd condition. 4th and finally, and surprise, engagement. Simply put, folks, the more frequently students make contact with other students, faculty, and staff, the more successful they will be. Engagement, being involved in a valued community that values you. It's not just engagement, it's engagement which honors and supports you. Matters. And what matters in particular? Active engagement with others in learning in the classroom. Remember, folks, it's learning that matters, not retention. Why? Well, here's again another result of many years of complex research by us researchers. One of the strongest predictors of how much you learn during a course over time is the amount of time you spend studying. But it turns out that the more frequently you are engaged with other students in the classroom, actively in learning, the more time you spend studying in the broadest sense of the term. I don't mean just sitting at the desk by yourself. I mean studying in the broadest sense, engage actively in thinking about material and working it over. Engagement matters because it expands your engagement in learning. That's why, increasingly, faculty are asking, how do we build pedagogical structures that actively require students to be engaged, not some, but all? Thus, the increasing focus, both in developmental education and across the board, on pedagogies like cooperative and collaborative learning, problem-based learning, project-based learning. That's what I do, project-based learning. It's wonderful stuff. The irony of this, folks, is that as opposed to elementary, middle school, and high school teachers, we, the faculty in higher education, are the only faculty literally not trained to teach our students. What? Now, think of it. I have my PhD from the University of Chicago. Because I went there, it must have been the best graduate school in the country. It had to be. Someday the Cubs will win. I don't know. Someday the Cubs will win. Praise the Lord. What did I learn about pedagogy? 0. What did I learn about curriculum reform? 0. About assessment of student learning? 0. About learning styles and cultural differences? 0. What qualifies me to teach? Oh, a PhD, man. I'm good. No, please, don't get me wrong, folks. They're wonderfully gifted, fantastic faculty members in community colleges, more so than four-year schools. We know that. But as a matter of practice, intentional, structured, proactive action, we do not require our faculty to be trained. Yes, we have professional development, but it's voluntary. That's why I really admire the work that's going on in a number of community colleges like Valencia, Richland College in Dallas, in Texas, De Anza College, and many others that now require as a condition of employment that faculty in the first contractual year or 2 or 3 must be trained in teaching and assessment methods. So Richland College, under the work of guidance of Richard Middleset, established faculty learning communities where faculty sit together 2 years and sometimes 3, learning how to teach, learning about assessment, and in a learning community method, sharing their ideas and growth. That's what we must do. So Richard Middleset once said to me, look, why are we fighting these endless battles of faculty development where some come and some don't? We can win the war if we do it 1 year at a time, 10, 12 years. That's what we must do. We cannot leave our student learning to chance. And who must guide this? The faculty who know this already. So that matters. So we also use pedagogies. And here, listen to this person.
The third day, we had gave us a riddle. Because what psych is about is like getting and how to take notes right, how to do all these things, how to make, do things right. And working with other people, like study group-wise. It's kind of like the idea he was trying to get there. He gave us a riddle, and he put us in groups. And putting us in groups actually brings us a little bit closer together as a class. And that's exactly how it went. We all clicked right away. We weren't afraid to talk to each other. And then we'd have a group discussion. That's one thing we always do. We have a group discussion, and people aren't afraid to open up.
In groups. In a classroom, in a standard lecturing format, does anyone open up? Okay. There's many ways of constructing this. Think about how engagement, this comes from a study we've done for the Lumina Foundation a number of years ago on learning communities across the nation, 15 community colleges, 7 four-year schools. And this comes from a quote, I think it's from Seattle Central. How engagement through pedagogy expands your involvement in learning beyond the classroom. Listen to what this person says. The more I talk to other people about the class stuff, the homework, the test, the more I'm actually learning. Well, that's good, isn't it? They work on the material. And the more I learn not only about other people, but also about the subject because my brain is getting more, because I'm getting more involved with other students in the classroom. So what does this person say about what engages him in learning? Other students. Especially for the, quote unquote, traditional, no longer traditional, 18-year-olds, social engagement is almost a precursor to intellectual engagement. Right? And here, collaborative, cooperative learning, these methods do that. And then this person adds this wonderful last line. I'm getting more involved with the class even after class. Now remember this person. It could have been, I don't remember the person. It could have been Pedro. I know he's Latino. I can't recall. And I said to Pedro, I said, yo, Pedro. Well, I didn't say that. I said, explain what you mean. Class ends at 2:40. How do you mean? He said, oh, no. He said, no, class doesn't end. Class continues. And we saw this visually, we did qualitative work. You know what we meant? He meant the students walk out together. They talk as best they can before they go to the buses or the parking lot, their assignments. Within reason now, right? Within reason. They come to class a bit before and talk about their work. That is studying. That's the classroom to them. It's not the borders of a curriculum or designed by an hour. It's engagement in learning. That's the class. And then for so many students, that form of engagement provides very powerful support. Here, this is a quote from a 37-year-old at the time in New York City at LaGuardia. She had 3 children in the house, in the apartment. 2 jobs, and no partner in the house. She had a commute from Brooklyn, New York, to Long Island City in Queens by subway at night. Now, if you know New York like I know it, just getting to LaGuardia was an achievement. She had struggled in the past, went to 2 other community colleges, and dropped out both times. She found herself in a learning community at LaGuardia that uses collaborative pedagogy, where faculty cross the borders of the courses and use these pedagogies to have projects crossing the borders of the curriculum. And this is what she said. In the cluster, we knew each other. We were friends. We knew things very, very well because we discussed it all so much. We had discussions about everything. And then she adds this beautiful metaphor. It was like a raft running the rapids of my life. You get that? For them, the support was something so emotionally powerful to her. To have people support her that she can manage these rapids. It matters. Engagement, but a certain type of engagement. Okay. Finally, but all that, folks, constructing effective success in the classroom does not make for completion in itself. It's only the building block of completion. Completion for our students requires successful completion of many classrooms or courses one at a time over time. It requires a certain timely progress. And thus, as you know, we now are focusing on this issue of momentum, student progress. It all springs from the work of a good friend of mine, Isaac Newton. We called him Izzy in New York. Well, you know, Sir Isaac Newton once famously said, an object at rest tends to stay at rest. An object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an external force. The same principle applies to students. A student at rest tends to stay at rest. A student in motion tends to stay in motion. And the more rapidly they gain momentum, the more likely they are to finish. That is why so many colleges, and now even states, are moving toward in developing systems that promote frequent, rapid progress, especially through developmental education and in the first year. It matters. And that's why that young lady talked about advising. I don't have time to take courses that don't work for me. It's money, folks, as well as time. So, 1, some institutions are moving to look at the curriculum and say the first thing we should do is eliminate these roadblocks in our curriculum that constrain movement. Often these are courses with high failure rates. So instead of blaming the victim, they say maybe the courses could be changed. And that's what Carol Twigg was working on for years. So we have courses being redesigned to address those core high failure rate courses. So too, have we moved toward building momentum in the first year? For example, using accelerated learning programs. And you know that California has a California Acceleration Project. Colorado's doing the same thing. LaGuardia, I think Kingsborough is part of a group called ASAP, as soon as possible. Right? So there's a number of things trying to speed momentum. And of course, that also relates to the work of John Gardner and Betsy Barefoot, constructing coherent first-year programs. How do you build them so there's coherence in the first year? You know, a lot of the curriculum is incoherent to our students. You think they need academic GPS systems on their iPhones. Well, why let students wander? We can make clear pathways, and that's the last thing that's going on. Development of coherent pathways. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has put a good deal of money into a project called Completion by Design, which is working with community colleges in 3 states, Ohio, led by Sinclair, Florida, led by Surprise Miami-Dade, and North Carolina, I can't recall the institution. Guilford, thank you very much, Guilford Technical College. And their intention is to build coherent curricular pathways for students, so students know literally where to go. And we hope to see that result. So the question is, how do you take individual classes and build them successfully, one at a time, over time? Remember, folks, it's not our teaching, it's not our work, it's student learning and their completion that matters. Okay. We have some time. We're going to do something radical for this intimate setting. We're going to talk to each other. Here's the rules of the game. You're going to do here, in your mind, if you're awake by now with coffee, do a quick 1-minute paper. Is there something that was unclear to me? Quickly turn to your colleagues on the table and discuss your 1-minute paper. And then do this for 7 minutes, 6 minutes. Then the time remaining to you, I will take your questions here. There are 4 microphones, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as best we can, we're going to talk to each other about the issues that concern us. So, let's talk, folks. It's great. I think it's great. Some enchanted evening, you may meet a stranger. Okay. Thank you, folks. See, that's what we must do. We must talk and learn from each other. And we must construct settings in our campuses when we continually engage with each other and our students so we learn together. So, which brave soul would like to start with a question? And there's microphones, please. Get up and introduce yourself and give us your question, please. Oh, microphones, folks.
Okay, it's working now, I think.
Thank you.
I'm Diego Navarro, a full-time Cabrillo College faculty member, and I also have a program called
Speak a little closer so I can hear you.
and a program called Academy for College Excellence. And my question is around the non-cognitive affective precursors to academic performance. Last month, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation had a 6-hour meeting with Bill and Melinda Gates to talk about non-cognitive affective precursors, and they brought in experts to talk about that. Because they feel that's probably an area that we should be looking at as a predictive thing that changes the way students are from the inside out. And so one of the questions I had for you is, what is the research around the non-cognitive affective dimension of students? How do we build intrinsic engagement? Because if we change our students from the inside out so that they're ready to struggle and to perform, that seems to be like a precursor for them to be successful. So what research is out there on intrinsic, affective, non-cognitive work to actually change our students from the inside out?
Thank you. Could I have a question I could answer, folks? Well, look, folks, I mean, in my family, my precursors, I say yes, dear, to my wife, but that's another story. I think the answer is I don't know, but my sense of the matter is there are a lot of programs now in colleges reaching out, as you know, to high schools and through summer bridge programs and transition programs, trying to establish early a sense of expectations and notions that this is possible, high standards. So I know Sinclair Community College does this, other colleges reaching out to students before they get there to establish a prior orientation to, expectation, and commitment to that success is possible, and we are here to show you how. Now, beyond that, I'm sorry, this is not my field. I do know it matters, and that's why I worry about the need for early feedback so students don't continue this legacy of feeling they can't do something. They can, and we can help them do that. Another question. Someone else, please.
In the back.
In the back.
Right here. Greg Hodges, Patrick Henry Community College, Martinsville, Virginia. We have, for several years, been working 8 years now on cooperative learning in the face-to-face classroom and have a great deal of qualitative evidence, as you've alluded to here, on its efficacy. Where we have our challenge, and we actually train other schools, and they have similar challenges, is linking quantitative data to the student outcomes. In other words, how do you link changes in pedagogy, something that large, to quantitative changes in student outcomes?
Good question. Let me just make an observation about how many people have been trained in cooperative teaching or collaborative teaching, literally trained. Let's be clear. Group work is not necessarily cooperative group work. You know what happened? I've been through this before as a student. A faculty person will say to you, please, I want 4 students to get together and write a paper. That's all he or she says. What happens? 1, 2, do the work, and 2, 3, freeload. That's called teaching. I won't add that. Cooperative group work is a highly structured form of activity that requires both on the part of the faculty person and the students a set of skills. So first, before we answer your question, you have to ask, what is the degree to which cooperative teaching is being implemented in the way it's intended to be? Because not all cooperative groups are cooperative. And in the first year, for example, in the first classroom, students have to be developmentally trained to be cooperative. They're often not. So it takes work. Now, the methodological question of associating an independent thing called cooperative teaching to outcomes is complex. And I have a lot of problem with these quantitative models that seek to decide it's an independent contributor to. The world doesn't work that way. It's contextualized. But I think the trend data is what you need. That as more and more classrooms are using it and using it correctly, you will see a trend, I expect. And that's what we care about, not the individual regression coefficients. Right? But the evidence, now, let me urge you, I think problem-based and project-based learning is even more powerful because students are required to apply what they're learning in groups. Has anyone done project-based learning or problem-based learning here? It's very common. For example, what's the big problem-based learning school? Is it University of Delaware? PBL Center. Wonderful stuff. Thank you. Another question. Yes, please.
My name's Laura Overstreet. I'm from Whatcom Community College in Bellingham, Washington. Also happy to have come from Tarrant County College some time ago. You've given us a lot of tips about the 1-minute paper, muddiest point, and things like this. And a lot of us at the table agreed that we've heard these before. My question is, why is there so much resistance by some faculty to make change? That's the hurdle that I keep confronting.
Well, my time is up, folks. I have to... All right, look. Let's be clear, folks. Perfection is the enemy of the good. We're aiming for, not perfection, improvement. So let's look at that question. In any group of individuals, faculty, politicians, or otherwise, there's the choir, and you are the choir. There's the anti-choir, and there's a group of people in the middle. And their activities are constrained by a range of things. Look, the typical community college faculty member speaks what? 15 credit, teaches 15 credit hours, if not more. And many of them teach in 4 or 5 institutions across those borders. So how do you get time to engage in these activities? One. So there's certain limits we have to face realistically. It's not because they don't intend well, necessarily. But two, what is the support structure? And the behavior of faculty is shaped by the same 4 conditions: expectations, support, assessment and feedback, and engagement with others. So then how do we expand the proportion of faculty willing to do this? So the question I ask myself is, which faculty, in which courses, in which part of the year do I first engage? What resources and incentives do they need to support their work given their schedules? And then finally, let me observe, if there are no consequences for changing or not changing, why does anyone change? So at some point, there's rubber hits the road here. We have an obligation, and there are consequences for not meeting our obligations. Remember, it's not our teaching, it's about the learning of our students. And that's what we must focus on. So I need to conclude. Thank you. Let me just observe in closing, because our time is up. Again, let's remind us, success arises one class at a time. And the issue is not retention, it's about learning. And that does not arise by chance. Sorry. Oh, it's already too late. It arises, again, through a structured, intentional, proactive set of actions that's systematic and coordinated that must involve all of us, in particular the faculty, because that's their classroom. Thank you, folks.
Thank you again, Vince. We all need these kinds of reminders, even if we're in the choir. Let's take a break, and then our program continues at 9:30 at various sessions. Have a great conference this morning.